Well, it is very, very, very lovely to be here with you. Happy New Year. So this is the first satsang of 2014 ever in the history of the entire universe. And here we are together from all around the planet. And me, I'm in Nice, in the south of France, where I'm working with my friend King Jeff on a music project. And when that one's finished, I'm going to get back to the one where that tune was part of, because isn't that nice? That really, really sets me up. It almost takes me off on a dream that I can almost not bring myself back from. But here I am. And why I'm telling you I'm in Nice is because there's a party going on. It's a gentle sort of Sunday afternoon, evening party. And it's a very large space that I'm in, and I'm at one end of it, or the party's down the other end. It would either be no satsang or a satsang with a party. And I thought that was actually quite ironically pertinent to this whole notion of giving things up that are supposedly bad for you, which are generally the things you like doing the most. And that whole conflict, the conflict, or apparent conflict, between the drives of what Freud called your id, that unreasonable, irrational, you might even say bestial aspects of self that swirls about in an unresolved state at the unconscious level. And between that and what Freud called the ego, which refers to the self that we construct, at first quite cognitively, in fact. You know, as a child you are quite conscious of how you're constructing yourself, as well as how you're constructing the story that you're telling yourself about life and the world around you. The version that you're seeing or you're creating, the description that you're formulating of the world around you. You're quite conscious of it, and you're quite conscious of the moves that you construct. You know, you see somebody else making a particular kind of move or doing things in a certain way, and you copy them, and you make it yours, and you do it a bit in your own way, and so on and so forth. Bit by bit by bit by bit, you create this thing called a person. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But the fresh creations idea, just got a lovely sound to it, fresh creation. I tossed about with whether it should have an S on the end or not quite a while, and I still don't really know. I left the S on in the end, but I'm not totally sure about it. Fresh creation sounds very nice to me as well. And it has a ring to it that could apply to, say, a French couture house, or some manifesting freak, you know, like whatever it is, whichever way you want to go for it. It could even be God itself sitting there in heaven going, time for a fresh creation. Well, we recreate our perception and experience, hence, of reality, according to how we describe it to ourselves. And this consequently changes how reality shows up. That is the essence of magic. Now, I repeat that. We constantly recreate our perception and therefore experience, because we experience it as we perceive it, of reality, moment by moment, if we're flexible enough, according to how we're describing reality to ourselves. And this consequently then changes how reality actually shows up for us. And that's what is meant by magic. Is quantum physicists would say that the observer affects the field of the experiment. Satsang intensifies this whole procedure. So satsang is it's an old Sanskrit word meaning we come together and sit in our authenticity. We offer each other and the presence that informs us all our true selves without parade or artifice or posturing of any kind whatsoever. And although traditionally satsang is conducted in an ashram in India with the guru, we are doing it the super modern way, and this technology affords us the luxury of not even having to deal with the usual bullshit you get at the beginning of an actual satsang in an ashram, where everybody's looking at each other and checking out who's a better meditator, who's a more senior person, who's more important, and all the rest of it. And that takes a while to settle down all that nonsense. We don't have to deal with any of that at all. At all. So it's really beautiful. It's like straight in, soul to soul. Now me, fundamentally, I really resist defining myself, my job, my offering, because it's limiting, and on the one hand, on the other hand, often somehow in my ear sounds grandiose. And I have never, though, managed to get past the fundamental, I mean, I could go on all day describing what I do, you know, an investigator of the human condition, an undercover holy man, a very, very flawed saint, a fallen angel, a kindly person, a brother to my fellows, and so on. But really fundamentally, I suppose you'd have to say I'm a healer. And so my interest, or my urge, my drive, is to make it more beautiful for everybody. I know how beautiful life is, because, or can be, at least to the extent I know, because of all the beautiful practices that I've been privileged to learn and now to teach. And I just want everybody, and I think this is natural as soon as you receive a gift like that, I just want everybody to enjoy, in their own way, the same, if not way more, benefit of being alive, because this is our gift. Being here is the gift, and it's such a shame to waste a moment of it being miserable, feeling sorry for yourself, or so on. And I know immediately you're thinking, yeah, but what about the people who are really going through a hard time? Well, I tell you, I've just been doing a healing on a lovely, lovely young girl of 15, afflicted quite severely with cerebral palsy, and her beautiful boyfriend, who I think he's 21, him likewise, and the two of them are just so completely and utterly in love, and it's a very beautiful thing to see them. But them, her, both of them, and then her mum, who's the loveliest, most gracious, courageous, noble woman, who's been through whatever it is, 15 years of pretty much hell, really, and has borne it with such grace and dignity, and giving her a bit of a healing. The human condition is a very painful one, but there was not a trace of self-pity or drama here with these people. I think I probably had more of it going on than they did. We can feel the delight of being alive, even in the midst of the worst pain and fear and so on, if we know how to do it. And it's actually very, very simple. You know, it's something we're going to do here. It's the basis of what we'll do at every satsang. It's the magic trick, if you like, which completely reframes reality, totally repositions you in relation to it. At the most profound level, it is the secret of all secrets that has been passed down either in occluded form or even blatantly for who knows how long, many thousands of years, in every tradition. And the Taoist tradition, which is the one I've had most of my focus on for the last 45 years or so, seems to be the most succinct and clear that I've ever found, at least. I mean, the flavour may appeal or it may not appeal. It's the one with the least amount of flavouring, actually, the least amount of decoration, hence mumbo jumbo. It's pretty straightforward. And I've dedicated myself to clarifying it, really primarily for me to get it, because in my day of studying, this stuff wasn't made easy. It was the old-fashioned traditional Chinese way of teaching, which was you had to work for it for a long time and get little snippets. I can't say which way is better. That was definitely a long route and a beautiful one. And it obliged me to sort of decipher the riddles and make it make sense for me so I could really get it as I was going along. And that naturally then led on to helping other people get it much faster than I did. And the underlying theme of all of this, of what we're doing, so me as the healer, the underlying theme is, from now on, let us be kinder and kinder to ourselves. We can be kind to other people, and we all know how to do that. And it's relatively easy, that, to be kind to other people. It comes quite naturally, and it's a lovely thing once it starts happening. You know, kindness flow starts spontaneously between you and another person. It's enriching for both of you. It really is what gives life its value. Without that, without being or displaying or sharing episodes of kindred spiritedness, there would be nothing really. It would just be one big boring load of nonsense. But the connection that we make when we help each other is a very beautiful one. And through doing that, we start to get a glimmer of the idea that it might be a good idea to be kind to ourselves as well, which is relatively a lot harder. Why is it a lot harder? Well, this is a subject for a discussion. It could go on, or a monologue even, it could go on for days, which I'll spare you at this point. But essentially, it's coming from faulty conditioning and no one pointing out to us who we actually and what we actually are. Which is where all the trouble starts. But we evidently need this trouble. We evidently need this setup so that we can heal it, because that's a game as well. There's something to do, isn't it? You make it all difficult and then you make it easy. Without making it difficult first, there'd be no value in making it easy. I liken it to really, really, really needing a pee when you've been drinking lots of coffee and haven't had time to go, and it's maybe hours have gone by, and suddenly it's on you, and that the whole universe is about that. You just got to do that, and then you do it, and the relief and the pleasure of the relief and the endorphins that are released into the system. And maybe it's my age, I don't know, but I have to say it's fairly unparalleled as essential experiences go. It's beautiful, and I think we all agree with that. Now, that's to say, that's taking it to the extreme. It's like, well, not the extreme, you could go further, I guess, but we generate tension so that we can then indulge in the joy of the releasing of it, and that's all fine. Another thing is that we always assume we have to change ourselves, which is based on the idea that our underlying fundamental stratagem for life is at fault. Because we all know secretly that we're all a bit different from everybody else, and when we all, on some level, try and be the same as everybody else, act the same as everybody else, within certain parameters and so on, so that nobody thinks we're freaks or whatever, and therefore abandons us. But underneath it, in secret, we all know that we all got our funny little quirks and peccadillos, and therefore we suspect there's something wrong with us right from the start. That our underlying métier is wrong. The way we choose our direction is fundamentally wrong, and therefore needs changing. And if this wasn't ubiquitous and universal, there would not be the massive advertising and marketing industry that exists, specifically, well, around all sorts of products, but especially those ones that are to do with looking better in every possible way. This is all based on you're not good enough, and everyone believing I'm not good enough, I'm not doing it right, I need to do it differently, I need to do it better so I can be like everybody else. Anyway. Now, what we're talking about today is habits and rituals, which we all have. We all have our habits and we all have our rituals. And I don't know where it developed, but from the same sort of self-doubting, self-punishing ethos, I suppose, that prevents us, has prevented us until now being kind to ourselves. There's this tradition of making resolutions on New Year's Eve, and so at the kind of point that you're really about to kind of let go and celebrate, if you're into that sort of thing, you have to somehow spoil it a bit by kind of saying, all right, this is the last, I'm going to be doing this for a while because I'm not going to do all the stuff that I really enjoy doing. I'm going to give it up. Give it up, right, kind of punish myself by taking away the things I really love doing because I'm bad and I shouldn't enjoy doing these bad things, and so on and so forth. And most people, in my experience, having done healing and all that stuff for a living for many years, when I used to have practice, was that around this time people would come in a few days later having broken the majority of their resolutions and feeling rather ashamed of themselves, thereby compounding the initial belief that they're not good enough and deserve punishing. And my job was to somehow or other wade through the resistance of all of that to that bit inside them that recognizes actually, right, you know, I can be kind to myself. It's not going to help me punishing myself as well. That isn't the way to go for it. And I have worked with this Taoist principle of dealing with addiction, if you like. That's what we're talking about, isn't it? How to drop these what appear to be addictions from our repertoire, or not, if we can't drop them, to manage them with more balance and being more sensible. I have worked over the decades with a lot of addicts, and two stick in my mind especially. One, a lovely, 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 lovely man who had been addicted to heroin for 30 years, and he managed it really quite well. There's a lot of heroin addicts that you would never believe are heroin addicts. So they're really successful people living lovely lives, and you just wouldn't know that they are. I mean, he doesn't inject, or didn't inject, he used to smoke it, which isn't as bad, or not as pernicious, shall we say. And but it was causing him problems, obviously, and he kept wanting to give it up, never could. Wanted to give it up, never could. I got him to stop it. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, but it came from basically saying, don't stop it. Just do it more even. Just do it more. Do it more. I got him to do it even more at first, which is a bit risky, I know. And then in the frenzy of that more thing, him not really enjoying it, feeling a bit confused about why he was doing it even more, that's when it broke the pattern. That was what, you know, shattered all the sort of the neatness of it all that he'd built up. And that's when I was able to say, and you've got an option, and you have an option. You don't have to do it. It's not actually a compulsion. This comes from having made a contract with yourself to do it, which you've forgotten was actually up for renegotiation. You know, there are regular, you know, breakpoints in the contract where you can renegotiate it. Anyhow, cut long story short, he stopped here. Another one was a woman who had been spending nearly 4,000 euros a month on cocaine and vodka. 4,000 euros a month. That's like $6,000 a month on cocaine and vodka. It wasn't obviously all for her. It was like party time. She had lots of friends and that. But you know, so that's quite an investment. And she was infamous for it. And I got her off it in 3 months. That was 4 years ago. She's never touched a drop of vodka or coke since. And it was easy for her. I mean, relatively easy. There wasn't any kind of effort of will to drop it. It's just that she finally got that there were options, and she could, if she wanted to, choose the other option. It was no longer a compulsion. She was obliged to keep going with it. My own experience of dropping stuff was just really alcohol, because I just used to drink a fair whack. I mean, I could easily live my life on good single malt whiskey. I love it. I mean, I utterly love it. The smell of it, the taste of it, it's just like, as soon as it's anywhere near me, it's just like, I love you. But I also noticed that, it was in my 30s, that if I did drink even a couple of shots, because I always liked it neat, the next day I had lost my sparkle a bit. And when I was working a lot as a healer, if you don't have your sparkle, gosh, it's really hard, because you've got to have that when they walk in and they've got a whole pile of problems, and you look at them, the rational part of your mind go, fuck it hell, what am I going to do about that? I kind of fix all that up with a few pins. And then the deeper part of you knows, it's like, yeah, I can take this on. It's not about the pins, it's about the consciousness. And you need that sparkle to go, yeah, come on, yeah, we can do this, you come in, we can sort you out. That takes a sparkle, and when you haven't got that, it's really hard to do the job. And so I just stopped doing it, actually. It was so easy. I just stopped it. I stopped drinking wine with dinner just because that's what everybody does, no reason to actually do it. And it was really interesting. It wasn't because I had to. I just wanted to. I wanted to have my sparkle. That was important. And I also wanted to experience the strangeness of being in social situations where everybody was getting merry and I wasn't. And to kind of like enjoy the difference somehow, the awkwardness even, and the difference in spaces, you know, like I was in one realm and they were in another. And to see if I could come through to their realm without the artificial aid in doing so. And I'm generally able to do that and have a wonderful time socially without needing to be drinking at all. And it's just been very, very interesting, but it was easy because I did do it this Taoist way. I know I could do it if I wanted to. I just felt like I didn't really want to. It wasn't I didn't want to. I wanted to have the no drinking experience. That's the key. I wanted that space that you get if you don't do it, if that makes sense. There's a subtle difference. Now, these habits and rituals that we have, it could be overeating, it could be undereating, it could be drinking, it could be drugs, it could be shopping. Well, you know, I mean, we know what we've got, all our stuff that we do. We actually use these as tools to create our identity. See, this constructed self that I was talking about, that's an identity that we create. And we define ourselves by our habits. Like, you know, I like going to the, well, I do actually like going when the sun's out, which it finally is after 6 days of pissing me rain. I like going around the corner and sitting in the pool in the sunshine when I'm not working on the music and just sitting and let the sun's rays heal my skin, it feels like. Oh, I love it. Drinking a coffee, just looking at the boats and what have you, and it just makes me feel very calm. That's my habit. So I've identified myself just now by that habit. I define myself as that guy who does that, but it's a false identity. It's not who I am. That's not who we are, and it doesn't actually exist. It only exists because we keep upholding it with these thoughts and conversations we have in our head, and with these rituals, which are actually symbols to us. It's like, yes, I am this. If I smoke this, I am this guy. If I drink that, I am that woman, and so on and so forth. And because it's a false identity, because it doesn't really exist, it depends on us perpetuating these habits, because that's the only way it can hold itself in a steady form. As well as which, the way that you, me, all of us were first introduced to the very notion of exercising self-control by whichever person first disciplined us in respect of stopping doing something you felt like doing, that they deemed was dangerous for you, that first experience as a child determines thereafter the way you then attempt to discipline yourself, which may or may not be efficient and is most likely not, only because most parents or teachers or siblings or friends or whoever it is aren't necessarily Buddhas, you know, or actualized Buddhas. They're not necessarily wise in life. I mean, they're doing the best they can, as everyone is. But in that, they were probably doing it in a fairly faulty way. And so your whole mode of controlling yourself is probably fairly faulty, just as it is with me and everybody else. So it's difficult. If you were the wise and enlightened parent or teacher, you would probably not do it the way it was done with you. You might, I don't know, your parents were, what happened. Chances are you probably do it differently. But the what happens is that, and this is the big trick in this whole Taoist practice, when you shift the emphasis of sensation, as in the arena of you experiencing yourself being you, backwards inside your body. In other words, when you take this whole experience, this whole ecosphere of sensation and all the accompanying thoughts and descriptions that go with that complex of sensations, when you take all of that experience of being and draw it backwards inside your body, you then become what you might call the background presence. Now, we all are aware of this background presence within us. In fact, if you look around you at the manifest reality all about, and you look carefully, you can actually see, not with your naked eye, of course, but with your mind's eye, the subatomic realm at play, which is what's giving rise to the material or matter. You can see or sense the background presence in everything, beneath, behind everything, just as you can see it within everyone if you look. This is the essence of the Native American tradition, which has it that everything is the Great Spirit. Everyone is the Great Spirit. And praying for them isn't about putting your hands together in a prayer position and looking up to the ceiling. It's about looking everywhere and seeing and talking to the presence, the Spirit, the Creator as they call it, in everyone and everything. And in yourself, of course. And when, another expression for it is witness bearer. It's like we all have been through critical moments in our lives, including going through the birth canal in the first place. Moments where it's pretty life and death, or our whole kind of version of reality looks in danger of crumbling before our eyes, or we lose somebody that we really love. You know, the big difficult stuff in life, even just going to school for the first day. When going through that, there is a sense of something inside bearing witness to what is going on, and it does so impartially. And I'm not now talking about what Freud would call the superego. This isn't the conscience I'm talking about, because that's still kind of part of the construct. This is beyond and behind that. This is, I hesitate to go spiritual and romantic on it, but this is the divine presence, shall we say, or the cosmic presence, the universal, ubiquitous presence that informs all of the everything we know about existence and non-existence. So it's the mother of both the dark matter and the light matter. And we're all aware of it. We all know it. We all know it. And we've developed more or less clumsy techniques for kind of making contact with it, you know, like religions and all that kind of stuff. Or, you know, what we're doing here, this is another way of making contact with it. And they're more or less efficient. You know, everything human is, or everything manifests is fallible and imperfect, so it won't be ideal, nothing is. But we all have this awareness of the presence, and when you gather the experience, this complex of sensations of being alive in this very moment, and you draw it back into the back part of your body, you are actually moving into and being then embodied by the background presence. Now, we're not used to doing this. It feels alien to us. It feels almost a bit naughty, you know, to do something like this. Yeah, it isn't. It's actually a very wise thing to do and a very noble thing to do, because once back in your background presence, you instantaneously acquire a whole other dimension of personal power. This is the power that the yogis have. They call them siddhis. You know, supernatural power, you might say. Superhuman power, rather. You know, the ability to focus your will and get huge amounts done without tiring. The ability to heal yourself from disease. The ability to heal others who are diseased. The ability to clear your mind when it is all a jumble. The ability to create an intention for a certain outcome and guide that outcome into actual being, and so on and so forth. And all these powers, once you are okay with them and comfortable with them, enable you to help others around you discover and embody their own authenticity, whence arises a much more satisfying, fulfilling, meaningful, valuable experience of being alive. So it's a very worthy, I don't mean that in a pejorative sense, it's a worthwhile enterprise, a worthwhile endeavour, not being selfish or being self-full. by doing so. And as soon as you do so, you're able to see that what goes on in the front of you is the experience of the constructed self. It's the version, or what was going on in front of you, should I say, before you kind of moved backwards inside, was this whole thing. But now, there isn't really anything there. There is actually, you just uncovered the reality. It was an illusion. So yeah, your sense organs are aware of what's going on around you, and your mind is describing it in certain ways. And you're not taking that as a fixed concrete description anymore. You know, it's fluid. It's just one description of what's going on, of what you're perceiving. Your solar plexus area, where you normally have emotional conflict playing out as physical tension, causing you to inhibit or hold your breath, which then exacerbates stress in the body, thus releasing particular chemicals which are addictive, which then cause you to create more and more stress and keep that going fairly constantly to keep that addiction going for a moment. And part of that addiction comprises you not being good enough, that belief, and therefore needing redemption, and the conflict between guilt and redemption being quite a powerful, nice trigger for a bit of tension in the belly. All of that's gone. It's just a bit of physical tension in the belly, a little bit, no big deal. You can actually reduce it right here, right now, by giving it a command. You just say to it, solar plexus of mine, therefore, which I am entitled to command, and therefore which will immediately obey my command, being is that it is my solar plexus. Yes, you are. Solar plexus of mine, just stop that now. Drop it. Let go. Now. And you take a breath, you breathe out, and your solar plexus relaxes. And that's a very nice feeling, much better than it being tense. Now, the other thing that's amazing, you'll notice, is that in the front of the brain, there has normally been, until this point in time, an incessant debate, conversation, monologue, commentary, running, often a full-scale kind of, you know, like Houses of Parliament brawl going on in there, with you fighting with yourself about what you want or don't want, or should have, or could have, or couldn't have, or wouldn't have, or didn't have, or why you didn't, and everything and everything and everything that goes on constantly in the front of the brain, which again is a habit, a series of rituals, very convoluted one, by which we compound the illusion of being the illusory self. And it's a big addiction, as is drinking, drugs, shopping, and all the rest of it. You'll notice, though, that by letting your presence, your sensation of self, be in the back of you, including being in the back of the head, specifically the cerebellum, the rear part of the brain, you'll notice there is no longer any noise in the front of the brain. That dialogue, that debate, that ridiculous conversation has stopped. It's stopped. It's not going on. There isn't any noise. It's a very beautiful thing. And here you are. You are now in command of yourself. You are the background presence. You're impartial. You know that reality swings yin and then it swings yang, and then yin, then yang. Goes difficult, goes easy, goes against you, goes for you, goes beautiful, goes ugly, goes hard, goes easy. Does all the stuff it does, dark, light, and all the rest of it. And there's no point investing or fearing in either extreme of it, because you know it's just going to swing back round to the opposite and just keep moving this wonderful dance that it does as you wend your way along the great thoroughfare. And you're impartial. You don't mind, because from back here, isn't this exciting? What an amazing adventure this is. Here we are. We are now the background presence, just bearing witness to being alive. And there are 200 of us sitting here all the way around the world, bearing witness to ourselves being alive. We know now that this self that we're bearing witness to is actually just a construct, which makes it even more exciting, because suddenly we realize, as we sit here together in this so-called, not so-called, in a sort of like a circle, almost like a band of beautiful angels all the way around the planet, as we sit here, that this thing in the front didn't even exist in the first place. There's just a lovely space there now. You'll notice now even more that if you allow the breastbone that's guarding your heart, that big plate of bone in the front of your chest, if you allow that to soften and open, you could imagine that it's like a pair of sliding doors that slide apart, or you could imagine it had one of those special effects things put on it, so it all goes like water, like fluid in a pond rippling. So it's no longer a solid membrane. You now can see it as something quite amorphous and porous, and it's no longer blocking your beautiful love from flowing. And your beautiful love will flow spontaneously as soon as you stop it from doing that. I mean, as soon as you stop stopping it from doing that. And by relaxing your breastplate, you kind of stop stopping yourself from doing it. So now you're loving, which is your real function here, is to love. That's your function, is to love and be loved. And this constructed self, because it is necessarily imperfect and flawed, because it's merely a human construction, always doubts its worthiness for love. It always doubts whether it's worthy to be loved. That's why the whole falling in love drama is such a compelling one. Because for a moment there, wow, am I lovable enough for that person to really love me? And then it's like, of course I'm not. Oh, they're going to find out. And then you get all anxious, don't you? That's what happens when people fall in love. You start off by getting really excited for a moment, then you get really anxious, and it goes like that, back and forth. And that's all because this, and both of people do it, of course, and this is because the constructed self is not real, it's not valid fundamentally, and therefore it is always insecure, always seeks the validation of another, and the other's in the same state, so all it will get is a combination of validation and invalidation, the yin and the yang of it all. That's what happens in the manifest realm. But when you're back inside, when you're in the background presence here, you know that's all bullshit. You know that you are valid, that you are love itself. You are love. Of course you're worthy of loving. You are loved already. This is it. You are love. And you being in this state, allowing your love to radiate now, enables you also to be naturally receiving the love being radiated by everyone else, specifically right now, in our circle, in our beautiful sacred circle here. And you might want to close your eyes, I don't know. This is up to you. This is really seems to have gone into the meditation zone now. And you might want to breathe a bit more slowly. You might even want to soften all the muscles of your body, starting from your crown and moving down all the way to the ends of your feet and your toes. And then pay special attention to relaxing your eyes, your cheeks, and your nose, and your jaw, and all the rest of it too. So now you're in the back of you, you're sunk right back into the presence here. We all are. Your heart's open out there in the front, and that's conducting a natural, spontaneous in and out flow of primordial love, transpersonal, unconditional, universal love. This is the medium in which we thrive. So here we are now thriving, with an intention to be kinder to ourselves, with an intention to trigger, to instigate fresh creation in our lives. And the mind is at rest in the cerebellum in the back of the head. Nothing can perturb it now. It's like you're in your cave, perfectly safe, away from the madness of the world, away from all that imaginary pressure which is associated merely with the local self, away from all those compulsions or apparent compulsions that have you acting out in ways that sometimes concern you, which you might want to moderate, manage, or adjust, or regulate. But only in an easy way, of course, not through force. Or you might not, and that's okay too. And aware that you're in the company of 200 others who, believe it or not, are all going through exactly the same set of conundrums and apparent dilemmas to varying degrees at varying times. Everyone on the planet is. You're not alone in that. And you're aware that the more comfortable you let yourself be in the back of you, leaning back now into your shoulder blades, leaning back into the front of your spine, leaning back into your rear pelvic bones, leaning back into your sacrum with your mind, leaning back into the rear of your skull. With your heart wide open, feeling totally and utterly relaxed, you will notice that you're now also in touch with your own past, including the horrible bits as well as the beautiful bits. But you own it now. It doesn't own you anymore. You're in command of it. It's not in command of you. You can reach backwards behind you and accommodate all of it as this gift, this beautiful journey that you've been on, with all its pain and all its pleasure, all its difficulties and all its ease, and say thank you for this ride so far. Surrounding which, behind you, so to speak, is a sense of your own ancestors, all those who have come before, stretching back into the mists of time, whose presence on this planet, this very planet, and all the stuff that they did, somehow or other managed to work its way through the ages and find itself expressed through your DNA right here, right now. And that's the link all the way back to the beginnings of time for humans. What a beautiful thing, eh? And somehow or other, through the mystery, consciousness evolved, and here you are, the proud caretaker of it. In your line, in your lineage, here you are, proudly caretaking this consciousness, this mysterious, miraculous gift that we generally take for granted, but which now we're paying homage to. Consciousness, here you are, embodying it. And it's not just a cold reptilian consciousness. This is a consciousness warmed up down below by this beautiful heart of yours, this really the soul of you, the unique gorgeousness that is you, the beauty in you, the courage in you, the kindness in you, the joy in you, the exuberance in you. There in the core of your chest is just warming up this consciousness and making it really soft and beautiful, caring. And all of this, of course, is supported by what the Chinese call the qi. This is the Tao, the presence we were talking about, the big background presence in motion throughout the universe. That's what it does. It manifests itself as energy. And this energy is down below in your own belly right now, supporting the whole experience of being alive, without which we wouldn't be. And normally we completely overlook it to the point where it's actually even difficult to feel what energy feels like, even though that's what we are. But right now you're aware of it in your belly. It's filled like a Buddha's belly with this actual Tao in motion. The primordial power of existence and non-existence itself is active in your belly right now. And that is what is supporting, facilitating and making possible the love in your heart, which is warming up the consciousness that you're aware of in the very center of your brain. And this is a beautiful thing, so we can take this moment to give thanks. Now, if you would be up for creating an intention from back here with the power of the background presence, if you would be up for creating an intention which was somehow right now being supported by the force of all that ancestry, of everything that's gone before, not just for you but for everyone in this circle, if you were to make an intention now with the power of everyone's ancestors here and the power of everyone here right now, this intention would be exponentially multiplied in its power. Now, rather than making silly resolutions, let us instead resolve ourselves. In other words, let us right now make an agreement with ourselves that we are actually willing to keep. And I suggest that this agreement be that we have an intention to be healthy, that we have an intention for this is for the local self, this constructed thing that we've got going on, this art form that lives its life in the world, the body that houses it and the atmosphere within the body that so it can be comfortable, is a healthy one, you know, and a calm one, and a balanced one, and a warm one, and a joyful one, and that the external world supports you generously and magically in continuing to be this healthy, joyful, balanced, warm entity for the duration, which is as long as destiny decrees, and may it be as long as can possibly be. This is the intention. And this intention also comprises that this beautiful, healthy, kindly, joyful entity, supported generously by the world around you, is standing at all times in good relation, in harmony, in mutual joy and support, and cooperation and collaboration, and fun, and shared love and pleasure, and all the things that everybody loves with everyone around you, and specifically with all those with whom you interact on a personal level, social level, and on a professional level, and then on a general public level. That you stand in good relation to everybody, that you're popular, that people like you, but not in a way that you need liking. They like you because you like yourself. And people like themselves around you. People like the experience of being around you, and you find yourself highly pleasing in the presence of others. And you can even see it now. I'm sure you're imagining it for yourself as you lean right back inside. You can see the picture of you maybe at a cocktail party or whatever's occurred to your mind. You know, we make these pictures up, or we replay ones we've already known. Whatever. You can see yourself now in a variety of situations, being that person, being that joyful, healthy, fulfilled, completed, balanced, warm, kindly, awake entity, being supported generously by life to continue being that entity, standing in really good relation to everyone around you, and feeling highly pleased being with yourself in the presence of others. You can see it even now. And you can see that the contracts that you have been upholding until now actually ran out at the end of 2013, amazingly. That means that the contracts are completely and utterly up for grabs, completely and utterly up for renegotiation. And this is the moment. Now, it's not the moment to go into a heavy legal trip, but it's certainly the moment to say that I agree with myself that from now on, I will be kinder and kinder to myself. And I will agree that any time I notice myself acting apparently compulsively according to the old agreement on the old contract, I promise that I will remember that I have an option. I promise that I will remember that this is no longer compulsory behavior. I will remember each and every time that I am tempted to act out compulsively that I have an option. I also agree with myself that I am completely free to not take that option if I don't wish to. And if I still wish to do the thing that I was previously doing compulsively, I can still do it. It's just that now I'll do it consciously rather than compulsively and blindly. That means that I am now fully in command of myself and my own experience. And I am kindly, and I am warm, and I am encouraging, and I do not punish myself, I reward myself, and I believe in myself. And even if my stratagem appears to be quirky, or different from that of other people's, which it necessarily will be. I no longer assume that I am fundamentally wrong. From now on, I promise that I will assume in the first instant that I am fundamentally right about the way I am going. Furthermore, I promise that I will no longer feel obliged to compulsively play devil's advocate with myself and question every decision I make. I can if I want to, but I am no longer obliged. So from now on, I can make all the decisions I want to make without even questioning them once, even if they're really different from other people's, and even if at times they seem to lead me into some very strange places. That's all as it's meant to be. I trust my path. I trust the Tao. Why not? And you can embellish or alter or create the contract you want to make with yourself right now at will. You can do it any way you want to do it. Take this moment to just make the agreement. Keep it simple, because you can always embellish it as time unfolds. But just be simple with yourself and clear, and just make the agreements that you know you can keep. And you can keep the agreement to be kinder to yourself, and kinder and kinder. And as you're doing that, I would like to suggest that by being in the background of yourself now, by being in your own back, and therefore allowing the front to be quiet and still, become aware, if you're not already, that this presence that sits in the back of you is actually far larger than what would normally fit in a human being's back. In fact, when you release the constraints of your mind and awareness, you're really aware that this presence that sits in the back of you is really huge, really huge. So I'd like you to tune in to this presence that sits behind you now. This is the big you. This is the real you. This is the real identity. This is who you really are. And really, really drift back into this presence, because this is the one that lasts forever. This is the one that goes on. And be in here, be in here, be in here really big. And as you sit in here really, really big, you're aware that there's actually, you get glimpses of it. It's a bit rude really to do this, but you're aware of it, that there's only one of us here. There's only one big presence here, and that's the Tao. And it does a little photo, oh, you caught me, does a wink, and then disappears again. So that's the game of hide and seek that we're all in, as it should be. And it's a very beautiful game. Now be aware that here you are with all your power in the back of you, and you're aware of the construct, the constructed self. Just because it's an illusion doesn't mean it goes away now, and we wouldn't want it to. Because without this constructed self, it would be difficult to play the game of everyday life. It's your mask, if you like. It's the mask you adopt for the theatre of life. Now visualize yourself being extraordinarily happy, exploring the sensation of the absence of whatever it is that you would have done compulsively. See yourself in a situation where you would have done something compulsively, and see yourself not having had to use willpower, just having realized there was an option, remembered the option, thought, I fancy trying that option out and seeing what happens. And see yourself very delighted that you did that. So much so that you're thinking, ooh, this is a nice new one. This is a nice new ritual. I think I might adopt this ritual, which is the ritual of the enjoyment of the space that occurs when I desist from doing that compulsive thing I used to do. And then I would also like you to, before we come out of this, just entertain this idea that there is this a tense used in the English language, habitually, colloquially, which is a form of the present tense used in describing yourself. And this is the device that we use to perpetuate the illusory self. For example, if you were to say, on Friday nights, what I do is I go to the local disco and shake my booty. There's nothing wrong with that, of course, and it's a noble pursuit. However, it's a myth. You could validly say that on Friday nights until now, I have gone every week to the local disco to shake my booty. That would be valid and that would be real. You could report that if it was so. But the idea that you go every Friday night, when is that you go in the future? How do you know you'll go there in the future? It's not. It doesn't exist, and everybody does it. I'm a guy who does this and does that. You're a girl who does that and does this. And everybody goes, oh yeah, I'm somebody that does that as well. We all collude in maintaining this illusory realm that does not exist. You might want to look at changing that language pattern, because by changing it, you will actually change your reality and dispel the myth, and therefore enable yourself to remain in the back of you, bearing witness to it all instead, which is a far more enriching experience than running around like a headless chicken in the front of you. Just bear that in mind, because in relation to the habits that you might want to be regulating or dropping, if you say, I am somebody who drinks, I am a drinker, you are perpetuating that agreement with yourself. You're not. You are somebody who has been a drinker, for example. You did drink until now, or until whenever it was, and that's all you can say. Saying any more than that is being presumptuous and merely is creating that reality and perpetuating it. So you might want to play with that a little bit, becoming cognizant of your own linguistic patterns, because it's linguistics that determine what we call reality. So saying, let's shift the use of these linguistics to one of bringing us back into the, whatever you call this realm, the everyday state, and do so by twitching your eyelids a bit and wriggling your toes and fingers, wriggling your nose and your ears a bit maybe. You can open your eyes if you want, or you don't have to if you don't want to, but this is the moment we can indulge the game of Q&A, questions and answers. So if you do have questions for me, this is the moment, and I will do my damnedest to answer them succinctly and sensibly and usefully for you. You can do this either by typing them in or speaking them out. And esteemed Sue O'Kell, the producer of this satsang, will now explain exactly and precisely how you do that.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Happy New Year to you. It's lovely to be on the first satsang of the year with you, dear Sue.
It is, and Happy New Year to everybody who's on this satsang with us as well.
Hear, hear.
We have actually got quite a few new people, so a particularly warm welcome to you if you've never been to a satsang before. I hope you're enjoying it. To ask a question to Stephen, there are two ways you can do this. Firstly, just type it into the question box and I can read it out for you. Or if you would actually like to speak live on air with Doc, and he does really enjoy having you do that, what you need to do is wave at me so that I know you want to speak live. So to do that, in your GoToWebinar control panel, which has an orange rectangle at the top with a white arrow, if you look down there, you will see a blue circle with a yellow hand and a green arrow. Now if you click your mouse on that, I will get a little symbol on my screen showing that you're waving at me, and I can then unmute you and put you through to Stephen. So I'm not seeing any hands raised at the moment, so I'm going to go straight into the questions. Stephen, you probably will feel that you may have answered some of these, so I'm going to ask the first two because they're very similar. I'll ask them together. The first one is from Andrea, and she says, I'd like not to feel a need for sweets and chocolate every day. And Jennifer similarly says, I love sugar and I'd like to restrict my sugar intake.
Yeah, so that I totally relate to that. The sugar itself, Andrea and Jennifer, doesn't have any power of its own, although people do tend to think it does. And interestingly, I mean, there was this brilliant book I read called, actually I can't remember what it was called, but it was the history of the sugar industry, the global sugar industry. which, believe it or not, was actually the basis of what the whole globalization of industry was based on. Our whole global trading pattern was predicated on the sugar trade. That was the one. Funny, isn't it? Sweetness. We all want sweetness. And it comes from a lack of spleen energy, amazingly, which actually in turn comes from intermittent energy from the mum as we were in the womb, and thereafter through the weaning, up to weaning process, and of course after that as well, by then the pattern was already set. And because all our mums were human and therefore mostly fallible, it was inevitable that the energy would be mostly a bit hit and miss. And so a lot of people have this craving for sweet food. And sugar, as we know, has its own addictive qualities, and it's fine. It doesn't have any power of its own, though. And the contract with sugar ran out in 2013. So we're free to rewrite the contract. And I would suggest that it would be that I will remember from now on, every time I'm faced with sugar and the craving for it and the availability of it, that I will remember I have an option, and that me taking the sugar is no longer compulsory. I am not compelled to take the sugar. I am not obliged to take the sugar anymore. In fact, oh yeah, and I will remember I have an option. I don't have to take the option. I'm free to keep on doing the sugar, but no longer under the misapprehension that it's a compulsory thing to do. It's an option now. The sugar is merely an option. The non-sugar is also an option. And I might even be willing to experiment enjoying the theatre of not having the sugar and seeing what happens, because that could be very interesting too, sometimes. But I will also promise that I'm not going to turn this into an excuse to punish myself. I'm not up for setting myself up with a goal that I know I'm going to fall over on. So sugar is my friend. My craving for sugar is my friend too. And some friends you kind of play with a little bit too often. You need to kind of chill out a bit and play with other friends for a while, just to give it a bit of variation. Sugar won't mind, a sugar friend. You know, that's cool. And you can have that in your contract, that you're free now to play with other friends a bit more too. And try that out. Just the friend of there being no sugar, and see what that feels like occasionally. Just to see, it's an experimentation. And it makes a hole in the pattern. Once you start making a hole in the compulsive patterns, all kinds of things can happen, because the body wants to bring itself back to balance. It wants to heal itself. Given half a chance, it will do that. And so all we have to do generally is to become cognitive of what we're doing, i.e. that it's no longer compulsion, it's an option, and that there are other options. And even that, just being aware of that little process, is enough to sort of shift the pattern and get the body balancing itself back out again. And what I was doing in the meditation was that if you can visualize yourself being the person who's really healthy and feeling great, the sugar bit will take care of itself, because then you're setting up the intention. If you can keep compounding that by seeing it again and again and again and again, you're that healthy person, fulfilled and great. Well, then the sugar would have obviously sorted itself out, whether you still do it or you don't do it, or you do it less or you don't do it at all, would have taken care of itself, because you become that thing you're intending to be, which is the healthy person. The sugar bit is the bit that sorts itself out. I hope that makes sense. It helps.
This next one is from Amanda. Hi Stephen, I've a different addiction, a habit of creating situations where I fatigue myself and crash after a period of intense activity and stress. I'm a mother and an entrepreneur, and this just doesn't work. I just can't seem to crack it. What advice do you have?
Well, Amanda, I don't know, did you say it doesn't work? I mean, I don't know, you're still here doing it. You've got the kids, you're an entrepreneur, you've got it all going on, you're still alive. So it evidently does work. I would suggest that it's not that it doesn't work, it does work, and you probably find it a little exacting. However, I don't think you can play it anyway in life and not have it a little bit exacting. I mean, that's the whole point of the game, isn't it? It's tricky, it's challenging whichever way we play it, and no way is ideal. So I think you have to start off by giving yourself acknowledgement that your stratagem is correct for you, or has been up until now, and that you have options. The contract with that way of doing it ran out in 2013, so it's time for renegotiating the contract, which would be the same as with the sugar thing. It's like, I can do that if I want. I can do the crash and burn. That's fine. That works. It's worked till now. It is an option, though. It's no longer compulsory. I don't have to do that. It was initially a choice I made somehow or other, whether I realized it or not. And I don't have to keep making that choice, but I can if I want. On the other hand, there is an option of me doing it a different way, which would be, well, I don't know, like where you've regulated it a little bit. 'Cause it doesn't have to be a massive shift. I mean, most sort of really good healings are done with like a little subtle shift. They're not done with like a huge thing where you kind of turn someone inside out and upside down. It's like a little movement to the left or the right is enough. I mean, it's the same with flying a big plane. You only need to tilt the wing flaps a little bit to make it shifty, or the rudder a little bit to make it shiftier. If you did it too much, the thing would maybe even go into a spin. So it's important only just little adjustments to change it, and that could be an option too. And it wouldn't be because you've like, oh, I've got to give up this addiction of driving myself crazy. It's just because, oh, I could try that. That could be interesting. I'd like to experience that, perhaps. That's an option. And it's just having that is enough. As well as which, if you learn to come back inside into the back of you and to breathe slowly, it's really hard to remember to stay in the back because we're all trained to come forward. But with practice, you do remember more and more of the time. And the more of it, the time that you do remember, the more that you automatically remember to relax and pace. It sort of helps to pace. It does definitely help to pace the energy when you're in the back of you rather than shoved up in the front, because you're in command of the drama now rather than the drama being in command of you. That tends to be what makes us do that kind of mad, dash for it and then the collapse afterwards, is that, oi, I want to go, because you're responding to the drama. You're trying to keep up with it. You're racing with it. But actually, when you come back inside, the drama then conforms to your tempo instead. And that's much more fun, as you know. So I would hope that would help you. I like that question, though.
Elaine's asking, how can I establish regular exercise as a habit?
Yeah, it's a good question, Elaine. I would suggest as follows, that I don't know what exercise you're referring to, but assuming it was, say, let's take a Qigong maneuver as an example. Now, you would, all these things generally come in a sequence of moves. First you do this thing, then you do that thing, then you do this thing, then you do that thing, and it will last for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or half an hour, whatever it is. And if you feel obliged to go from beginning to end, and when you do, you have the most amazing experience. And if you do it every day, this builds up a kind of a deposit account of strength, which you can feel and rely on. But it can't come from discipline. It can't come from forcing it or making yourself do it. It has to come from becoming addicted to it. It's creating a positive addiction. And so the avoidance of it, first of all, would be something that you're allowed to do. You've got to allow yourself to avoid it if you feel like. That's only an option, though. It's not a compulsion. You're not compelled to avoid it anymore. It's an option. The other option would be to try it out and see what it feels like, but only a little bit every day. Don't allow yourself to do too much. I would suggest you tease yourself by only allowing yourself to do 3 minutes of one move. Now, it could be hanging forwards and stretching out the back of your legs. It could be doing a Qigong kind of bellows type of movement, which makes you, kind of using dynamic strength like isometric exercises or whatever. But you're only allowed to do one, no more than one exercise, and you're only allowed to do 9 repetitions of it, say. So you're only allowed 3 minutes, no more. And you keep this up for a week or so until you can't bear it. You've just got to do 5 minutes. And then you allow yourself to do the second exercise, and so on and so on. And that way, you build up an addiction slowly but surely, just like you would with heroin or any other addictive drug. It takes a while to get it straight away, even with the pernicious drugs. And then bit by bit, the body starts wanting it. And rather than it being an effort, oh, I've got to do my thing today, it starts like, oh, I want to do my thing. Because it feels good. It's like, oh, yeah, I know I like that one. That's a good drug. That one makes me high. I'm going to do that one. And it's easy. It's easy to do. I only have to do the one thing or the 2 things. And then bit by bit, over months, over years, however long it takes, doesn't matter, You build it up to a full session every day. But it can't come by force, because that never works. It will just fall away then. It can only come by wanting it, really desiring it. I hope that helps you, inspires you.
I should be thinking about that when I'm getting up to go to the gym in the morning, Stephen.
Yeah, well, that also, I would say that that's one of the advantages of doing all this Taoist shit, because you don't have to go to any gyms or anything. You just do it wherever you are.
Okay, a few comments. Malkit says, "Hi Stephen, this was a particularly powerful meditation and maybe I am feeling so and I needed this right now. Thank you for facilitating it so beautifully. Love, Malkit."
Well, Malkit, thank you for being here and for commenting on it so beautifully. I have to confess that for the last 6 days, I think it's, well anyway, since New Year's Eve when I got down to Nice, I've only done it, I haven't spoken a word of English really. I had a couple of phone calls. Jeff and I, when we were working, we just grunt at each other, so that doesn't count as English. All I've been doing is kind of muttering or mumbling in French to various people about this and that and the other. And I really didn't think I could muster a straight line conversation in any language, actually, at the beginning of this satsang. So it was a miracle to actually have got it out at all. And it was, for me as well, really, really powerful. It really took me somewhere nice. It was nice having the distraction, and the music stopped actually halfway through, which, that was going on in the place here. So that was nice, made it easier. Thank you.
Linda says, "I love simplicity, so very simply, thank you for the 2014 mantra, I trust my path." Brilliant.
Well, Linda, you're very welcome. What was it? What was the mantra? I trust what?
I
my
trust
path.
my path.
Oh, yeah, that's really important. I really, like down in the south of France, falling in love is a big thing here. People love doing that. It's one of their pastimes. Yeah, it's kind of romantic and all that. And I've been talking a lot about that with people and saying how really what seems to happen over time is that, yeah, of course you're going to be susceptible to the odd one or two of those kind of situations every now and again. We're all human. But what generally happens for me is this deep love affair with the path itself. And the path really feels like a being to me. The path itself is an entity. I'd hesitate to call it a man or a woman, although I would veer towards the woman more than the man. It feels like a fairy godmother. It's definitely, for me, as a guy, I guess, it has that feminine energy. Very beautiful, warm, nurturing, trustworthy, reliable, yet a bit gamey and playful entity, the path itself. And so my relationship, primarily my love affair, is with the adventure and where it's going to take me next. And, ooh, where are you going to go now? What are we going to do now? Where's it going to go now? What's going to happen now? And then the more that relationship develops, the less tendency there is to get lost in the doldrums when things seem to not work out like you think they should. Instead, you just know automatically, well, that hurts a little bit, or that feels a bit, whatever it does. But I know that that's because it's taking me somewhere better. And it's not a blind faith thing. It's just that you just know it. You just know that it's going to do that, just only to swing you into something that is for your highest good. And I would say that there are many things that are the most important thing in there is, but that's one of them. One of the most important things there are is to develop this trust, this friendship with the path, to love the path primarily before anything and anyone else, really. That's it. And then everyone and everything the path brings to you, you're loving. There's sort of the path, really. They're part of the path. And that's what I meant by the Native Americans talking to the spirit in everyone and everything. It's the spirit of the path we're talking about. And that's what Tao actually means. It means literally the way, the spirit of the way.
Mark is asking, any specific tips for an orgasm addict, i.e. stop the porn browsing, etc.?
Well, no, I mean, if you're an orgasm addict, I say watch more porn, though, if you want to keep having orgasms. But I don't know, really. No, I mean, the thing is, if you watch porn consciously, so that what you're looking at there is that you dispel the illusion for yourself a little bit, rather than allow yourself to be fooled by it. And you know that there are people that are being paid to do this as a job, and the fact that the guy's got a hard on is because there's a fluffer there to make it happen. It's not probably, and they've taken the Cialis or whatever, it's not probably because they're really turned on to that girl. And if they are, and if the girl's really turned on to them again, so what? That's their business. There's two people doing that thing, being filmed. It's not you with that girl or being that guy or whatever it is that's turning on. I don't know what kind of porn you're watching. You know, I'm assuming it's that. It's these people doing this parade that's being filmed. And I think when we can look at it realistically like that, when we can dispel the illusion, the titillating effects of it seems, or in my experience, diminishes to a zero. Because, yeah, I found quite early on that porn was a bit bollocks, really. It was real, well, I suppose, literally. From the age of the teens on, it got a bit like, kind of creepy feeling. If I was watching it, it made me feel a bit creepy. Because it's like, no, I don't want to be involved in other people's stuff. And it's not even their stuff. They're just pretending. It's just a parody. And it's all a bit like cows watching each other in the cattle shed. I mean, like, kind of so what after a while? I think that's the key to it, is observing it realistically rather than being under the spell of the illusion of it. And being an orgasm addict can actually be transmuted, and it's a good sign, because it means you've got a lot of sexual energy, which is brilliant, because it means you're fundamentally a healthy, strong person. And the Taoist way is to grab hold of that and bring it back up into the body, because then it fuels you. Now, I'm not saying you should do that. I'm saying it as an option. You look at the ejaculating as an activity. You say, that is no longer compulsory. I'm no longer compelled to ejaculate, to bring myself off like that. I can, if I want to, consciously. It's fine. There's no rule about it. It's beautiful if that's what I want to do. And I have another option as well, which is to do something else. And one of the other something else's you could do is you squeeze your pelvic floor, you take a deep breath in, and you draw the power of the penis and of the gonads and all the rest of that area up into the belly. And you can feel it immediately you do it. And if you keep squeezing the pelvic floor so that you pump that chi, which is what it is, up and up and up, so it goes into your brain. You get it up into the brain, you get kind of a shuddery feeling in the base of the brain. That's when you know that the energy's got into your brain. And that bangs you awake. It's the most beautiful thing, and that will keep you going for 24 hours. So basically, every time that you are faced with the prospects of compulsively acting out in that respect, remind yourself you have an option. And that if you take that option, you will get a beautiful buzz in the brain. And by and by, over time, that might seem like a viable alternative, because it's important to remember. I'm assuming you must be fairly young to still have that kind of energy. That after the age of 40, 45 or so, like that, it's really important for guys to not ejaculate excessively, just because it seems to weaken the kidney chi and the jing a little bit. It's good to start to conserve it a bit. You'll notice, as you get older, if you spunk it out, so to speak, you don't have the energy for the Tai Chi training or whatever it is, So there's a sense of needing to equilibrate it a little bit. And that's not done by force. You're not punishing yourself. It mustn't be that. It's just remembering you've got an option. That's all, and you might take it, and it will have the completely reverse effect to the one of ejaculation. Hope that was helpful.
How many more
questions?
questions?
That last question? Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no.
I was just going to ask you how many more questions you wanted, so I will...
Well, I think one, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Just before we do that, a quick comment from Claire. Claire said, hello, just wanted to thank you for a powerful meditation today. I really needed this. Saw us as one big universal I. It was beautiful. Feel the healing force of this habit-breaking satsang already. I love being here.
That's lovely, Claire. Thank you. But yeah, as your comment made me remember, wasn't it? I felt like I was in a dome with everybody. Or somehow we felt like we were in a massive dome, all sitting around the edges of the dome, all connected. It was a beautiful thing. And if I think just picturing us all in a massive dome right now, like angels, and in our midst is the earth, spinning there with all the people on it, all the 7 billion people. And believe me, I know this now, I'm sure of it. There might be 1 or 2 people of the 7 billion that for somehow or other are not suffering the existential conundrum, crisis, turmoil. But everybody's suffering. It's part of the human condition. See everybody on the planet there, all suffering. And us angels, having touched a moment of grace, now beam healing energy at everyone on the earth, like the angels that do that kind of stuff, presumably. and see everyone on the planet, imagine it, just imagine everyone going, "Oh, thank you, that's nice," ooh, and just feeling a moment of being tickled by the dow's feather tip and healed thereby. Okay, last question.
Okay, the last one is from Lucy. Why do we enjoy all the things that are bad for us?
Because they're fun, and they're not necessarily bad for us. I mean, I think we've got a misconception. You know, we need a certain degree of poison. You know, it's just a matter of degree, and it's the overdoing of the poison that makes it bad for us. I mean, from the homeopathic point of view, you need a tiny little trace of the stuff that's going to do you in, just to trigger the immune system. And do you know that the least poisonous thing I can think of, which is oxygen, would you agree? I don't think you get anything a lot purer or life-giving than oxygen. If you were to live long enough, that's the very thing that will kill you by rusting you up, by oxidating you. So it just shows you it all swings round and round. You know, there has to be some device by which entropy can do its thing and make us fall apart. Otherwise, the planet would be ridiculously overcrowded. We'd not be able to live here. So, you know, we have to die. We have to fall apart somehow or other, one way or another. And I suppose part of the mechanism that enables that is poison. But we need it. You know, we need to get off it. We need to drink a bit. We need to take drugs a bit. We need to do whatever it is we need to do to change the state, to buy something, to eat something, to watch a bit of porn, to whatever it is. We all need stuff to do. And it's not bad for us. It's only bad when it takes over and becomes compulsive. As soon as it stops being an option, you think, oh, I fancy doing that, I'm going to do it for a little treat. Once it becomes, oh, I've got to do that because that's my contract, that's when it gets bad for us. So I think it's not the stuff itself. It's fine to have a little bit of poison. It's okay. I think we need it. It's the yin and the yang. But it's got to be the minority shareholder. You know, the majority shareholder has to be the healing aspect, at least 51%, the strong life-affirming force. That makes us be here longer. But part of that is not punishing ourselves. Because if we're stuck in this punishing ourselves thing, thinking it's bad and we're bad and all the rest of it, we make ourselves all like that. I mean, we really must be kind to ourselves now, Lucy. And I'm hearing it going weird there on the audio side. I reckon this is the moment to say thank you, everybody. It's been very beautiful. Thank you, Sue. Come next week. It's just going to get better and better and better and better. Bless you. I love you and goodbye. Suffering be dispelled.